Hi there, everybody, and thank you for joining me from the LMP Multimedia Studio. I'm Schweigert, and this is the Huddle's post-game recap. Week 7 is in the books, and we're officially into the home stretch of the regular season. A lot of exciting results to talk about tonight, so let's jump right into it, starting with our LMP Game of the Week from Section 2. That was Solanco at Garden Spot. Golden Mules had a little trouble in this one early on. They spotted the Spartans' leads of 7-0 and 14-7, but eventually they fought back with their powerful running game, took advantage of a few Garden Spot turnovers, and left New Holland with a 31-14 victory, their 7th straight. Quarterback Noah McCardle scored a pair of touchdowns for Solanco, and Robbie Hassel went over 100 yards on the ground and added a touchdown himself. Solanco has winless Elizabethtown next week before they close out the season at Cocalico and at home against Mannheim Central. Speaking of Central, the Barons entered the week tied with Solanco for first place in the Section 2 standings, but they aren't tied there anymore. Their 5-game winning streak came to an end with a 40-27 home loss to Lampeter Strasburg. Central had no answer for LS quarterback Colin Bear Shank, who torched them for 357 yards and 5 touchdowns through the air, and also added a 2-yard touchdown run. Central took a 21-19 lead late in the first half, but they couldn't find a way to slow down Shank, and the Pioneers pulled away for the big victory. Elsewhere in Section 2, Cocalico pounded Elizabethtown 49-7 behind DJ Fabiani's 4 touchdowns, and Lancaster Catholic rallied to knock off Lebanon 41-27. Brian Downey and Quincy Clark scored 2 touchdowns each for Catholic. Let's move on to Section 1, where Mannheim Township did its part to set up a big showdown with Wilson next week. The Blue Streaks took care of business against Penn Manor, pounding the Comets 44-0. Eric Benjamin threw a pair of touchdown passes for the Streaks, including a 75-yarder to Riley McDonald. And Matt Van Gordon scored 3 touchdowns for Township. They stayed tied for first place in Section 1 with the Bulldogs. We'll get to what Wilson did in a moment, but first let's look at one of the week's more exciting games as Hempfield held off Cedar Crest 38-35. This was a wild one. Cedar Crest never really led the game, but they never let Hempfield pull away either. Will Blair scored on touchdown runs of 61 and 57 yards and caught a 9-yard touchdown pass from Sam Kramer, but it was the Hempfield defense that wound up standing tall in the end. They denied Cedar Crest on its final drive on downs near midfield with about a minute to go. In the other Section 1 games, McCaskey held on to beat Warwick 26-19, and Wilson crushed Conestoga Valley 38-7. The Bulldogs' Section 1 winning streak is now at a record 54 games, but they're going to have their hands full at Township next week. That should be a good one. By the way, who's the last Section 1 team to beat Wilson? That would be Mannheim Township, although it was all the way back in 2007. Finally, let's go on to Section 3, and we'll start in Ephrata, where a pair of teams just dying for a win went at it. And Columbia came in riding a 9-game losing streak, while Ephrata was in the midst of a 27-game slide. Something had to give, and unfortunately for the Mountaineers, it was their defense. Columbia ran them over, winning the game 44-13. Dykeen Miller rushed for more than 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, including a 90-yard run for the Crimson Tide. Ephrata's losing streak is now at 28 games. Elsewhere, Donegal knocked off Pequay Valley 32-7, and Anvil Cleona defeated Kutztown 33-8 in a non-league game. But the game of the night in Section 3 was in Fredericksburg, where first-place Northern Lebanon won a barn burner with Elko 44-41 to stay undefeated and alone in first place. This one went back and forth all night. Elko was down by a couple of touchdowns in the second half, rallied to take a brief lead, but they couldn't hold on. Isaac Wengert's 5th touchdown of the night proved to be the difference. He did it all for the Vikings tonight. He scored on runs of 1, 59, 16, 41, and 33 yards. So that's all for Week 7. Be sure to check out Lancaster Online for all of the game details, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for joining in, everybody. See you next week. Have a good night.